Welcome to the Data Connections video. In this video we're going to take the template that we would start with in class, and we're going to pull in all the raw data for the resource management report. Just to recap, we've got CRIS queries for the SOF and STH out of BQ, and then we've got 4 separate DEAMS queries and an arrows report. Now, if you've never done data connections before, or if you've never worked with Excel workbooks that get large or anything like this, don't worry, we're going to pull them in one at a time. Going to be very deliberate about how we do this so that you have a comfort level with pulling in the data, refreshing it, kind of being comfortable with where all this is coming from. What we're going to do is take this resource management report video build and from the folder on my desktop, and we're going to link and pull in all the data. Now, the first thing, it is important to maintain this file path, and what I mean by file path is there's a folder on the desktop or wherever you put it at your home station that says Resource Management Report, and it's located on the desktop. So if I were to right click and hit Properties, it's going to say the location is C drive, users, and then desktop, and then that's the name of the folder. So wherever it is that you choose to put this, you're going to want to maintain that same string, that same location, because if things do change, then data connections can get broken. Same as the names of these. So I typically name them from the source of where I get them from, and then the name of the report. And then as I continue to repull those reports, I save over top of them, maintaining the same name of my raw data. The next thing is these raw data files. You'll know from the class or from the other videos, or from maybe just working with them with your arrows data, you're going to need to delete a row or so. Now this data, the way that it comes out, it's already in the right format. We don't need to delete row 1 or anything, but if you pull it straight out of arrows, you may need to delete row 1 or a few of the rows. But just be aware of that when it comes to pulling them in. We want the data starting in cell A1 so that the data connection works well. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Now in the Data tab and the Resource Management Report, you can select Connections, and that'll tell you if you have any existing external connections, and right now we do not. You could go to Add and add each one of them individually. That wouldn't pull the data in, but it would add a connection to your workbook. You could do that if you wanted to. What I'm going to do is kind of step through the entire process. So I'm going to have a new tab, brand new tab, and I'm going to label this BQ Status of Funds, or BQ SOF if I could type. And so what I typically do with any of these data tabs is I do color them red to distinguish. I'm going to select cell A1. And there are many places you can get data from. We're going to select existing connection, and you can see there's nothing on this computer right now, nothing in the workbook, nothing on the network. If I were to have created a connection or added one, I would see it right there. I'm going to browse for more. Desktop, and I'm navigating to that file path I talked about earlier, and I'm going to find my CRIS BQ SOF. That's what I want. Double clicked on it. Now it's going to go search for it. It's going to tell me, hey, I found something. There it is. I found this right here. First row of data contains column headings. That's correct. Sometimes you'll see where it's 2 or 1. In this case, you see 2. I want this first one. If I were to go into that, this is the name of the tab or the table itself from that download. I'm going to hit OK. It's going to bring up another prompt and say, hey, how do you want to pull this in? I want to pull it in as a table. And I want it to go on the existing worksheet in cell A1. We're not going to add anything to the data model. I'm just going to hit OK. And just like that, it pulled in my entire status of funds. And if I were to scroll down, you'll see it's several hundred records, but it pulled it in just like that. And I'm going to go to the Data tab again, Connections, and show you right here CRIS BQ SOF. That is the name of it that I have. I'm going to open up this book here and check this out. My connection is CRIS BQ SOF. The name of my workbook is CRIS BQ SOF. If I go to the properties, select in here and hit properties, we're going to dig into it a little bit more. Here's where you can say, hey, refresh this every so many seconds. We're not going to worry about that. We're going to refresh it when we want. If I go to definition, now here's kind of an important thing to pay attention to, that this applies to all the data connections. I'll expand this so we can see it. Again, file path, C drive, users, my profile, desktop, resource management report, and then finally to the file itself. That chain needs to remain intact for this data connection to work. If it were to break for some reason, if you were to move this file to another folder, somebody renames your folder, it's going to kick you an error message whenever you go to refresh. Now the great thing is that all you have to do to reestablish that connection, to pull it into this data table and this file, is browse and go find it again. If you were to delete the data connection, then you would have to restart over again. But as long as this Excel workbook, the resource management report, has that data connection to this data table here, you can just browse and find it again. So that's a good thing. Last thing I'll mention, command text. Now this is the actual text. In this case, it's a CRIS query. This is the name you gave the CRIS query. This is another one that you don't want to change. If you were to change the CRIS query from BQSoft raw to BQSoft and just take out the raw part, that would break the connection as well. It wouldn't know what it was looking for, in which case you would need to browse for this file again and connect to it again. So it's not that you can't fix it, it's just that if you do change the name of the CRIS query, if you use the CRIS query that we give you in class and then you go back to Home Station and change it later, know that you need to reconnect to that. Okay, so that's about all there is to discuss when it comes to a data connection, that file path, and then the query names for arrows and deems. They kind of name those in the background. You don't have a choice in that matter. So it'll kind of be that way for you. But the CRIS one you do want to look out for. Alright, so there we go. We have that data connection. You can refresh from here if you like. To refresh the data connection, you can right click in the table and hit refresh. That just pulled it in again. You can go to Table Tool Design and you can do the drop down and hit refresh. You saw a refresh all button that also is in the data tab, and refresh all. Any of those is going to reach back out to the folder and pull that data back in for you. Again, this is a table, it's dynamically expanding, so let's say we pulled this in today on the 19th of November. On the 20th of November, we come back into these folders. We go to CRIS. We save right over top of CRIS BQSoft. We save over top of that. We see that the date modified update to the 20th of November. We open our resource report. We hit refresh, and it's going to pull that in again, brand new, updated, and to give you those reports that you want. So that's the functionality and the automation that we want to gain from this. And with the tables, if your SOF added 2 new lines, it's just going to expand dynamically for you, and they'll be added to your report automatically. So let's go ahead and bring in the DEAMS SOF. Same thing here. A1, I'm going to existing connections, browse for more, desktop, resource report, DEAMS SOF. Now if I hadn't deleted or enabled content in the DEAMS data and then deleted that first row and that last row, it would give me an error, or I would have issues later, so remember to do that. I'm going to hit OK because I've already done that. Bring it in as a table and hit OK. There we go. There's our DEAMS data in a table, dynamically ready to expand and for our use and for our reports. Let's go ahead and bring in the BQSTH. Same thing. Just the more times you see this, the more times you'll get comfortable with it. Remember, let's say, for example, I had broken the data connection or wanted to add a different report. This is the same thing. You'd go and find that, but I'm looking for my BQSTH. Find it, pull it in. Hit OK. Now this is a whole year FY16 worth of data that I'm going to pull in. And I'll prove that to you here in a second. See, it's connecting, it's running a background query down here. It pulled it in. If I go down to the bottom, hit Control Shift and down arrow, that pulled in 14,240 transactions. So just in a matter of a few seconds, it pulled that in, and now we have a dynamically expanding range. Let's go ahead and pull in our DEAMS STH or DEAMS GL, however you'd like to label it. Data, existing connections, browse for more, desktop. This is a little bit repetitive, but trust me, if you've never done this before, it does take a second to get used to. DEAMS GL, make sure your DEAMS data, you're enabling the content from Discover Reviewer reports. Cell A1, it's going to think a little bit longer. DEAMS has a lot more transactions because of the way it does its accounting and then the amount of times it has to do credits and debits to T-Ledger. So using those GLACs the way we have them in the queries helps a lot. So here's our DEAMS data. I'll hit Control down arrow to show you 35,000 records, pulled it in just like that. And let me go ahead and get 3 more tabs, go through this again. If you have other data sources that you're saying, well, that's great, but I really want to pull this one in and do something with it, by all means, please do that. I'm going to go ahead and grab my commitment to obligation. This is the exact same process. Com to ob and sheet 6. Let me go ahead and invoice by LOA and data, existing connections. The nice thing about this is that if you establish a folder that you like and you know it won't change, then this is really the only time you're going to do this. Don't change the names of the queries, don't change the file path for the folder, and you won't have to do this anymore. So arrows, Workday execution. This should be our last one. So existing connections, browse for more, and our arrows Workday execution. Remember, you'll have to delete a row potentially in some of the arrows reports as well. This is a fairly small report, so it'll pull it in real nice and easy. Again, I'm going to select this first one, hold shift, and we'll select all of them. It'll group them for me. I'll right click, tab color red, because these are my raw data. It's what I found to be of best practice, or just kind of keep them the same color so you know which ones are your data tabs, which ones in these cases for the yellow are your support table tabs, and then which ones are maybe your report tabs. We use green typically for those. So again, let's go ahead and recap our data connections. Now you've seen I kind of went through all those, but look, now I have all of these tables that I am connected to. So my BQ-SOF, my DEAMS-SOF, my BQ-STH, my DEAMS STH or DEAMS General Ledger, DEAMS Commitment to Obligation, DEAMS Invoice by LOA, and arrows Workday execution. So if I were to want to refresh all of these, I can go to the data tab and just select refresh all, and what that's going to do is reach out to all of these. You see running background query, it's doing all of these incrementally by tab, so it's going to hit this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, on down the line, and it's kind of working through all that. Now just remember, you just pulled an entire year's worth of data in that one refresh is what happened. And let me go ahead and show you the difference, and this is why we tested it on a year's worth of data to kind of manage the size and see how it performed really. So this resource management report video build, this is the file I'm in. I just connected to all of my data sources, and before I saved, it's 513 kilobytes. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Let it go ahead and shows how big my file got for one entire fiscal year worth of data. So it went from 500 to 6.3 megs. Okay, so that's all that raw data in there. That's the file size inside an XLSX workbook. Now, the next few videos, we're going to be adding a lot of formulas and a lot of other things to make all of these things make sense, make them intuitive in your reporting. So believe it or not, for one fiscal year, this file is going to grow to maybe 16 or 18 megs by the time we're done, but it's going to be well worth it, guys. We'll see you then.